Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the BFA class review series. My name is Mr. Couchy, and I will lay out for you some of the changes affecting Arcane Mage going into battle for Azeroth. Although we are close to the end of beta, some of this is still subject to change, so don't take everything said here as law. Arcane Mage in Legion wasn't bad. I'm talking gameplay here. I liked the idea of actually using your resource as a resource. I liked the single target nuke spec that had different phases of a burn and a conserve. The purple barrier looked sick. Arcane Orb and Arcane Charges had such a cool interaction with their mastery. Many people didn't like the idea of being super strong within the burn window, and then like a limp dick after an orgy while you popped more Viagra with Evocation. Let's see what they decided would be better. Arcane has seen another rework to see if it's capable to compete. Arcane Intellect increases the intellect of every raid member by 10%. Your old class buff is back, pretty much making them imperative for every raid group. Remove Curse was also returned. Now let's see if any mage actually uses it. Shimmer had its cooldown increased from 15 to 20 seconds, making you slightly less mobile than before. I know we haven't gotten to the talent section yet, but literally everyone takes Shimmer, it might as well be a passive. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty. Clear casting is new. For each bit of mana you spend, you have a 1% chance to gain clear casting, making your next arcane missiles free and channeled 20% faster. Arcane Barrage launches bolts of arcane energy at the enemy target, causing arcane damage. And for each arcane charge, you deal 30% additional damage, it consumes all arcane charges, costs no mana, and hits one additional target per arcane charge. Arcane Blast blasts the target with energy, dealing arcane damage increased by 60%, mana by 100%, and cast time by 8% per arcane charge you have. Arcane Explosion causes an explosion of magic around the caster, dealing arcane damage to all enemies within 10 yards. It no longer scales with the amount of arcane charges you have, but it still generates one arcane charge if any enemy is hit. Arcane Missiles launches 5 waves of arcane missiles at the enemy, dealing damage. Evocation increases your mana regen by 900% for 6 seconds. Prismatic Barrier shields you with an arcane force, absorbing damage and reducing magic damage taken by 15% for a minute. The duration of harmful magic effects against you is reduced by 25%. And lastly, your Mastery, Savant, has changed. It still increases your mana regen rate and max mana by a certain percent. Arcane Charges increase the damage of Arcane Blast by an additional percent and Arcane Barrage by a percent. Man, there are quite a few core reworks here. The Mastery change to add Arcane Barrage is nice, so it won't feel so weak in AoE situations anymore. And the change to Arcane Missiles is nice because it just acts as a proc button now that you can use once it pops up, instead of saving it for your Arcane Charge stacks. It adds some randomness to a spec that didn't really have any and punished you if you didn't play perfectly. The changes continue into the talents. Your old Amplification, Erosion, Temporal Flux, Words of Power, and Unstable Magic have been removed. I'm kinda happy they removed Erosion. In almost any scenario it was stronger talent versus Unstable or Nether. Nether had its place, but for simplicity's sake you just took Erosion for both single target or AoE. Your new Amplification is when clear casting, Arcane Missiles fires one additional missile. Reverberate, if Arcane Explosion hits at least 3 targets, it has a 50% chance to generate an extra arcane charge. Rule of Threes, which is removed from your artifact weapon. When you gain your 3rd arcane charge, the cost of your next Arcane Blast or missiles is reduced by 100%. Time Anomaly, formerly a PvP talent. At any moment, you have a chance to gain Arcane Power for 10 seconds, gain Evocation for a second, or gain 4 Arcane Charges. I'm a little worried about this talent. It's gonna really suck to be sitting at 3 charges and get a proc for 4 free ones when you're in the middle of casting another Arcane Blast. We will still have to see how the math works out to pure chance, but I feel like this is gonna be dead in the water. Touch of the Magi, Arcane Blast has a 10% chance to apply Touch of the Magi, accumulating 20% of the damage you deal to the target for 8 seconds, and then exploding for that amount of arcane damage to the target and all nearby enemies. Some interesting choices thrown into the mix, but I still think the jury is out when deciding what is going to be worth it. You have some change talents as well. Resonance. An Arcane Barrage deals 15% increased damage per targeted hits. Slipstream, clear casting, allows arcane missiles and evocation to be channeled while moving. And there are some minor number of wording changes affecting other talents that coincide with the stat squish for BFA. So what do I think? After playing a bit on the beta, I'm left with a fairly lackluster feeling. I think it plays better in both single target or AoE situations. It doesn't feel as punishing, but it doesn't feel as fun either. I liked the idea of having to focus hard on my play in order to output the best I could be. It still feels quite turrety unless you take Slipstream and get lucky on some of those fancy procs. It is definitely easier to play and will be more accessible, but I feel Arcane may still be left to the wayside. How did you think Arcane felt in Legion, and how do you think it will perform in BFA? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around, like and subscribe, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.